We are now seeing the first member of Congress, the first Democrat in Congress, calling on longtime California Senator Dianne Feinstein to step down. That's coming from fellow Californian Ro Khanna, congressman, of course, putting out a tweet saying it is time for Senator Feinstein to resign, adding in his words, it is obvious she can no longer fulfill her duties. It's coming as some Democrats are sounding the alarm over Feinstein's absence from the Senate so far. She's been out since March, recovering from shingles. They're concerned about her not being there as they're trying to get President Biden's judicial nominees confirmed. NBC News reached out to her office about that piece of it. They are declining to comment. I want to bring in our Capitol Hill correspondent, Vitali, who, while live in Iowa for us tonight, is doing double duty because you also, of course, cover the Capitol. This is... Yeah, just to put it, it's kind of a moment here, right? Coming from Ro Khanna, who is on the more progressive end of the spectrum as far as Democrats in the House. But there is important context that I think we need to lay out here about Senator Feinstein, about some of what's been said in the parlance of D.C. on background, about her remaining in office, and about the pushback from her office on this criticism. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it to you as the expert to lay that out, but explain why this is such a big deal.
Yeah, look, this is a sea change moment, especially because when things go from being whispered about from unnamed sources on background, as you say, this is now the very opposite of that. Someone within the California delegation, Congressman Ro Khanna, coming out and saying that he thinks that it's time for Feinstein to resign. Another piece of his statement is hanging this on the current judiciary crisis, as you mentioned, because he says in a texted statement to us, we have a crisis in the judiciary with extremist judges stripping away women's rights. You can't preach on television about the danger of these judges and then sit silently as Senator Feinstein misses vote after vote to confirm pro-choice judges. So he's making that argument, which is valid and important and certainly not outside of what mainstream Democrats think and are now maybe starting to say. But there's another piece to this, too, which is that if Feinstein were to resign, she's got 2 years left on her term. We know that the Democratic governor of California, Gavin Newsom, would have to appoint someone to fill the rest of that term. That is something where he has promised that he would appoint a black woman to that seat. If you look at the list of people who are likely to get appointed, the first name that people often come to mind with is Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Lee is also running for that Senate seat. And this is where it gets a little bit messy because there are people who want Feinstein to finish out her term so that it can be a full-on open primary for an open seat. If Barbara Lee or someone else were to be appointed to that seat, then it would be an advantage, many feel, to them because they will have served in that seat already for 2 years. The other important piece to this, and why it's important that Khanna is saying this first, Hallie, is that Khanna has endorsed Barbara Lee. So there's the politics piece of this, the gamesmanship behind the scenes, and then the obvious questions about when she'll be back in Congress and the attendance issues and the math issues in the Senate that brings about.
What are we hearing from her office, Allie? I'm sure the tweet came out from Ro Khanna like 17 minutes ago, so I know there's probably nothing there. Yeah. But they have pushed back, I think, on this idea that she correct me if I'm wrong, but that she might step down. I mean, so far it's been that she will fill out her term.
Yeah. Yeah, that has been what they've been saying to us, but they have not been transparent or giving many updates about when she's coming back to D.C. And so we're seeing a few different items start to move right now. Concern over the fact that she's been out recovering from shingles for several weeks now. What does that do for the Senate math in terms of judiciary confirmations, especially on the committee that she sits on, the Judiciary Committee, where that's their central responsibility? But then there's also the open question of to resign or not to resign. And I think that's where her office has been pretty clear in pushing back. She herself has said that while she's going to retire after this term, she's not going to resign. But again, there's a huge difference between her retirement, which leaves this as an open field to everyone from Adam Schiff to Katie Porter to Barbara Lee, or her resigning, which would trigger the governor having to appoint someone. And that's where things might get crazy.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.